Hello, welcome to Little State Flower Company. My name's Anna Jane Kocon, and we are a 5-acre specialty cut flower farm. We grow over 150 different cut flower crops, and we primarily serve the wedding and event industry, but we also sell retail at our farm stand in Tiverton, and we sell at the Aquidneck Growers Market in Newport on Saturdays. And we also we have a few CSAs too. So we have a few flower shares that we offer pickup at Aquidneck Growers Market, the farm stand, and also at our garden center that we lease in the winter. So we're here on my Tiverton farm where we could not afford to buy an actual farm. We had to buy land that had never been farmed before, basically a giant property that had a junkyard on it. And so we have a lot of soil fixing and mediation to do on the land that we purchased. And what we decided to do this first round for this growing area behind me is, let me just say that I think I've really struggled with getting a good stand of cover crop in my career. I think it's really hard to keep the animals off of it. I would say one of my biggest pressures has always been deer and geese and birds. So even if you cover it afterward, sometimes they just come in and they eat it, and then you have these big patches where like nothing's grown, and that's okay on some levels, but really it's not doing its job if it's been eaten and you have a big naked area. Cover crop keeps weed pressure down, so it keeps the area covered so that other weeds don't just grow in and then drop seed everywhere, and like you kind of perpetuate your seed bed. The other thing that it does, all different cover crops do different things for the soil. Some of them add green mass and biomass. Other things are called catch crops, and other things are almost like fumigating, like mustard. And it's a big world, and it's a huge topic. But I can talk to you about the tillage radish, which is what I have behind me. So this is tillage radish, and it's basically daikons, and I'll pull one up so you can see it. So this is what is growing down there, is these giant radishes. They're super spicy and they're super delicious. And the thing that's special about daikon or tillage radish is that the root is so big that it pierces down into the pan, which is about 12 inches below the tilling surface, and it collects up all of the delicious things that are way down, trapped deep below the surface, about 12 inches down, and it collects it up into this whole root, and it brings it up into it. So everywhere that you see tillage radish sticking up everywhere in here, it's all loaded with they basically act like a sponge, is what people usually call them. So they're like gathering all the nutrients from all around them and from down below that you would never be able to access with just like using a chisel plow or something, and it collects it all inside this root. And then what happens is that they winter kill. So the root is not only collected all this nutrients and pulled it up into the actual radish, they're also very, very good for compaction. So if you tend to have an area that, compacts down, then let's say you have heavy clay or things like that, and the soil tends to get hard, and you have to keep plowing it and keep chiseling it. Anything you do to the soil, you're hurting your body, like your activity in your soil. So anything that you can do to reduce using tilling and mechanical cultivation is good. And so these radishes, you put them in. I sowed these ones in July, and it just so happened to rain once or twice after that. I put it down with lime, potash, and feather meal so that when they started to go, I have to lime my whole property anyway because it's New England, but the feather meal I put down so that they had something to eat once they started catching, so they had like a nitrogen source to just like chew on and be like, woo, and get going. So once it rained a couple of times and they took, the thing that I noticed about the tillage radish that was different than the other kinds of cover crops I've used is that the birds didn't eat it, and neither did the deer. And that's huge, because if you put 400 pounds of seed down and you're like, I'm going to have great oats out there, and the deer come and eat all that, you've wasted not only the manual labor and all your energy and all the work you did to get it ready to put the seed down, then you wasted the money on the seed. So I actually am really excited about the tillage radish because none of the critters around here ate it. And also that it took so well during a drought. So we just had like an insane drought here in New England, and we're still in it. Like, it's so dry. But these guys, because they're tapping so far down, they're fine, as you can see. They have plenty of moisture. So not only are they, if you can get them to get going, so you might need to water them to get them going, but once they're going, they tap so far down that they have a water source. They're basically like a sponge, and they're like collecting all sorts of nutrition from way down below the pan where you can't even access with your equipment. And then compaction. So basically this giant radish is going to die and create a hole of nutrition in the soil. So then you can just plant right in there in the spring, and there's a whole hole full of nutrition sitting in there. So basically it's like a genius wizard cover crop. It's like magic. Why not do it? Wow. It wins. Little Safe Flower Company has collaborated with the NRCS on all sorts of projects. And the most important first project was that we were awarded a grant for 2 high tunnels at one of our leased parcels of land in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. And those are 2 unheated 30 by 72 high tunnel greenhouses. The importance of these high tunnels for me is season extension. So basically I can grow an entire round of annual cut flowers, and they'll start blooming in March or April. I plant them usually in November, December in the high tunnel. Then they'll start to produce in March, April, and May, sometimes into June. And that exact same planting I can grow outside as well and have another 4 weeks of production of that exact same crop. So I can have sweet peas for 4 weeks coming out of the high tunnel on the early end, and then we just transition right on outside to the outside crop. That means I'm selling 6 to 8 weeks earlier than anything that could produce outside in the spring, and 6 to 8 weeks, well, maybe not 6 to 8 weeks, probably more 4 to 6 weeks beyond what is producing outside on the other end into the fall too. So I often think that those 2 high tunnels made it possible for me to buy the land in Tiverton, which is where we are right now. And then the other project that I'm just starting to collaborate with the NRCS on is here in Tiverton on this property, we don't have any water for the farm, so we have to put a well in. So we just had a meeting about that. It's not funded yet or anything, but we're just starting to have get the ball rolling on plans and engineering plans for putting a well in on the Tiverton property.
So today we heard a lot from Anna Jane regarding some of the things going on at her farm, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about NRCS programs and how the things that she's doing can relate to our programs as well. One of the main examples that she used was the high tunnel, which was funded under the EQIP, or Environmental Qualities Incentive Program, which it targets addressing resource concerns on farms. So the resource concern being addressed with the seasonal high tunnel is extending the growing season, which allows more people to buy locally. Another major program that we have in the state is the Agricultural Management Assistance Program, or AMA, which is targeted towards risk prevention. So we talked a little bit with Anna Jane about her well potential because we're in a major drought right now. And so under AMA, wells can be funded to because it's drought prevention. And talking about the cover crops is a good segue to discuss one of the other major programs that we have in the state, CSP, or Conservation Stewardship Program. And that is an incentive program for farmers who are already doing a great job on their farm to continue doing the good job that they're doing. So with CSP, it's an annual payment based on the number of resource concerns they're addressing at time of application, which they maintain, and also the number of acres that they have. With EQIP, or Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and AMA, it's a reimbursement program. So we have a cost per unit that's established for all of our practices, and you're reimbursed up to 75 to 90% of the cost if you install it to our standards and specifications.
Thank you for visiting our farm, and to learn more about us, you can go to our website, littlestateflowerco.com, or you can also follow us on Instagram at Little State Flower Co. Thanks.